rumored Facebook IPO is finally beginning to be reality. On February 1st, the social network took the initial steps to become a publicly traded company and raise $5 billion toward its massive stock offering. But in spite of the excitement around the news, there are also many questions regarding the impact of the IPO on both users and marketers. And to help us answer some of these uncertainties, we're going to bring in Chris Treadaway, who is the founder of the Polygraph Media as well as the author of Facebook Marketing an Hour a Day. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Well, for starters, how will users be affected by this IPO?
Well, first of all, you're going from having Facebook as a private company to a public company. And so with that comes a lot of scrutiny that they've really never been subjected to before. So there'll be a much bigger focus on profits and revenues and sort of how the company is monetizing this massive user base that they've created over the years. So users will be affected because Facebook will be trying to do everything they can to increase revenues and increase profits, while kind of gradually, incrementally making the user experience a little more advanced, I guess, with every passing day. And we've seen that with the many changes Facebook has made over the last 6 or 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Right. As far as the experience goes, do you think that users will, at this point, realize what an impact it will have on them?
Well, Facebook has kind of crept into our lives a little more kind of with every passing year. And so, now people have all sorts of profile data they're making available. And now they have the Facebook timeline where you can go back into the past and talk about things that you've done or put into the timeline things that you've done in the past that are important to your life. And so really what Facebook is doing is kind of digitizing the mundane experiences that we're having day by day. And it's creating sort of what has been referred to as the biggest contributory database in the world. And so you have all this personal data that's there. I think people will definitely realize just how much is there as Facebook tries to do more to monetize that and make money from that.
Do you think that users will be more or less trusting of Facebook as a public company and of CEO Mark Zuckerberg?
Well, it could have an effect really either way. I mean, I guess, on one hand, you're sort of going to have the public markets kind of making Facebook make their data available about what their plans are, what their financials are, how they're monetizing personal data from people who are using the service. So on one hand, I think that'll cause a little bit of a check and balance as to what Facebook can do. But if Facebook kind of continues to grow and make a ton of money, off of personal data, there's that potential backlash that the service may end up dealing with, in that if it gets too big and too powerful, will people get more and more scared of it over time? And I think that's really the question over the next few years as to how this will actually go.
Right. Well, on the marketing side, let's talk about Facebook's behavioral ad targeting system. What can you tell us about the Open Graph Action Spec targeting and what it will do?
Well, so let's, I guess, define real quick what we're talking about with that. Facebook has a huge opportunity to collect details through verbs, I guess, of what we did. For instance, I ran 6.2 miles today. That's an interesting detail for a brand, say like Nike or Under Armour or someone like that, that's really after runners, for instance. Or, I drank a cup of coffee, I want to lose 22 pounds. Think of things like that as big opportunities for people like Nike and Starbucks and Weight Watchers to be able to identify specifically who individual people are. I mean, I think one thing that's definitely going to happen with all this is that Facebook is really, over the next few years, I think they're going to have to get more and more wedged in between the consumer and the seller of consumer goods. And so in so doing, Facebook will be able to generate leads, maybe, whereas right now they're offering ads. And so they'll get a little bit more into that lead generation business to some extent. So the Open Graph spec targeting, it's one of what I think will be a number of different sort of advancements that Facebook will try to make a little more money, make more profit, make more revenues. I don't expect to see it anytime in the immediate future. Maybe in a year or so, you'll start to see these things become tools for marketers and advertisers. But it's one of, I think, will be a number of advancements that Facebook makes in order to better monetize the social graph data that they're collecting.
Do you think that this could make the space within Facebook much more competitive?
Well, you've got Google Plus, that's an emerging company with now reportedly, I guess recently, 100 million users. So they've grown very, very rapidly. We're not really sure what Twitter will do beyond what I sort of regard as a simple version of the social graph, and that they could do some different things with. Certainly, as Facebook makes a lot of money from this and gets a lot of notoriety and press and all that for what they're doing, and with the concerns that users may end up having about privacy and the use of their personal data, it will certainly open up a competitive opportunity for other companies. But it's hard for me to see Facebook being anything less than, the market leader for the foreseeable future and for quite a while.
Right. I want to get into some of the privacy concerns. How big of a risk do you think that will be? And Zynga and Pandora, they ran into some issues last year when they filed for IPO.
Yeah, it'll certainly be something that will be discussed. I mean, you have 845 million users of Facebook, and so they're projected to hit 1 billion users worldwide later this year. And so when you have so much data about people, and Facebook will constantly be pressing to get more personal data about people as they go along, it can be a really big concern. I mean, you're talking about a pretty significant percentage of the global population that will be on Facebook and using it. So definitely will be a major concern. But remember, this has been something in terms of a long-term trend probably for the last 15 years plus, right? We've been gradually giving the internet broadly a lot more of our personal information. And over time, we've gotten a lot more comfortable with what we've done. And so as a society, it's hard to see us all of a sudden waking up to this and saying, all right, we've had enough. There are just too many benefits of using Facebook currently and other similar social services on the internet for people to just stop doing it altogether or be all of a sudden so concerned about it that it causes people to use it in different ways.
Well, with the ad revenue that Facebook released, what does that indicate about the sustainability of its advertising network?
Well, 83% of revenues in 2011 were from advertising, 12% were from virtual goods sold through Zynga, and then 5% were sold through virtual goods sold through other providers. So you're talking about a massive amount of Facebook's revenue presently is advertising, is based on advertising. And so what we've seen so far is that even though click-through rates and impression-based advertising costs have increased a little bit over the last few years, first of all, there's still a ton of room for that to grow. Right now, for instance, in campaigns that my company has run, we look at impression-based inventory costing about anywhere between 10 and 20 cents per 1,000 impressions. And if you compare that to alternatives and other types of advertising, you're talking about $5 CPMs or $4 CPMs minimum and up. ESPN, for instance, on their website charges $15, $16 CPM just because it's access to a great audience. So Facebook, with its targeting, if you combine Facebook's targeting options with the price that people pay, at least on an impression basis currently, there's really no better deal out there on the internet, and there wouldn't be even if Facebook increased their rates 3 or 4-fold over time. Where the sustainability question, I think, comes in is, will people continue to engage in the site? One of the more promising numbers, I thought, was that 57% of people are monthly active users of Facebook. That's the highest number they've ever come out with. And of those 57%, 6 out of 7 of those people were actually logging in every day. So you have something that's a very, very immersive experience and an addictive experience that Facebook has done. And really, that's what I would be looking at in terms of sustainability, because their ad costs, the rates that they're charging for impressions and clicks are very low relative to competition currently.
That's very interesting. Well, overall, for users and for marketers, do you think that the IPO on Facebook's part was a good move? I mean, I know they really didn't have a choice.
Yeah. Well, they needed to provide liquidity to the investors that had put money in all along. I think that it was something that they actually, with $3.8 billion dollars in cash on hand, it's something that they really didn't have to do to go public. They could have been a private company all along, but they wouldn't have been provided an opportunity for people who have invested to sell their shares and earn a profit from their investment. So, or earn capital gains from their investment. So, I think it'll be a good move for them ultimately. They don't have any specific plans for the money that they're raising, but they're going to have a lot of flexibility, a very richly valued stock, a lot of cash in the bank, and something that's profiting at $1 billion a year, at least last year. So you have something that's really a cash cow presently and showing no signs of stopping. So I think it's a really good move for them. Whether or not they'll be able to deal well with the scrutiny of being a publicly traded company, that sort of remains to be seen. Because so far, we've all sort of watched Facebook from afar and we've criticized them from afar. But now they're going to have millions of investors to deal with, not just private investors and venture capitalists.
Right, and who don't understand the tech space necessarily as well.
Right. I mean, they're going to be under a ton of pressure to grow revenues and profits from people that jump in on the initial public offering, and we'll see kind of how that shakes out. I mean, that's something they've never had to deal with before.
Right. Okay, a lot to look forward to. Thank you so much for talking with us, Chris.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. Reporting for WebPro News, I'm Abby Johnson.